word technon refers to an offspring, someone born out of, someone that came out of. And then if they came out of that person, we must see traits and patterns similar to that of the person they came out of. Let's go back to Romans 8. Romans 8. So we see the second word used there, which is the first word used. Verse 14 again. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, these are sons of God. For you did not receive the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you received the spirit of adoption, by whom we cry out, Abba, Father. Now says, the Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are technons of God. Technons of God. We are children of God. That means that the Spirit is proof that we came from God. That is, we look like God because we have the Spirit of God. The Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit. It's a phrase we've explained a number of times. That we are children of God, that we came from God, that we are offsprings of God. So, just the same way your nose looks like your father's nose, how they can identify you in your family is by your father's nose that looks all like that yours looks like, or the voice, or the eyes, or the nails, if we have time to look at that, or the height, or the body frame, or something, so that when they look at you, they say, this is also in your father. Therefore, you are a technon of your father. It says, for us, what connects us to God is that we have his spirit. Are you getting that now? What identifies the way the world will identify us is that we have his spirit. We have his spirit. The Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are sons, we are children, we are technons of God. We came from God. The similar characteristic, the similar identity that we share, just the same way you share the same nose or lips or eyes or whatever with your parents, and then they can identify you as being from your parents, the same way we can be identified with God because we have the Spirit of God. That's the key and the primary way to identify a technon, a son of God. While the conduct will outflow, while the conduct will come later, gradually, the moment a person is saved, he becomes a child of God. He may not have fulfilled all the good manners and everything that relates to the child of God, but he is of God. God identifies with him. Immediately, God reckons with him as his own. God calls him his. He gives him the Spirit, and immediately he is a part of God. He is a part of the family of God. That's why you can't tell who is saved or who is not saved by conduct. Yes, you should tell, which we are still going to look at exhaustively in this study as we continue to look at it. You should tell there is a way sons of God should behave, but that's not what primarily makes us sons. What makes us sons is not because of how we behave. It's because of what we have that makes us look like him. It is because of the Spirit that we both carry. We share of his Spirit. So I have the Spirit of God in me. I have the Spirit of God in me. That makes me son. When I believe the gospel of Jesus, what God gives to me to identify me as his own is his Spirit. He gives me his Spirit, and through this, I'm identified as a son. So, many times we may not behave like sons. Meanwhile, there is no perfect son, maybe only Jesus. But we may not behave like sons, but we have the token of sonship in us. We have the deposit of sonship in us. We are of God because we have his Spirit. His Spirit lives in us. Therefore, we have the identity of God. Verse 17 says, and if teknons, if children, then heirs. Kleronomos in the Greek, people that have a portion, that have an inheritance, that have a part in another. That means you are a part of the family of God because you have his Spirit. He has given you his identity. He has given you his DNA. He has given you his own identity and ability, and you can rightfully claim to be a son. You can say that I have his Spirit. How do you know you have his Spirit? Not because you feel like that, but because you believe his word. His word says that anyone that believes will be saved. And to be saved is to be born of God. To be born of God is to be born of the Spirit. Now that you are sons, God has sent forth the Spirit of his Son into your heart, whereby we cry out, Abba, Father. So it says, heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ. If children, then heirs. If children, then heirs. If teknons, that means we have a part in him. We have a portion in him. So it says, if children, then heirs. Heirs of God. That means God gave us an inheritance. God gave us something that made us be a part of him, that makes it possible for him to identify with us and for us to always identify with him. So even when our conducts fail us, even when we fall short, we have a part in him. There is something that makes us look like him. Praise God. Hallelujah. And that's why you have to look at Genesis 1 and understand what he's saying. In Genesis 1, when he says, let us make man. Let's see now. Genesis 1. Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. Referring to God's intention. Then God said, let us make man in our image. Like I've told you, the word let us does not mean they call the council meeting. He said, let us. It's a statement of intention. This is what I want to do. So it says, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. So when he says, let us make man in our image, he is not speaking of a physical appearance. So it is not the male figure, the female figure who are different in their physical characteristics. That is not what is called the image of God. So many people have wrongly said, when he now formed them, I said, oh wow, look at my image. As if God was trying to reproduce himself because God is a man or is a woman. He is nothing like that. We refer to him primarily with the male or masculine pronoun or noun or whatever. But he is not a male. Neither is he a female. He is spirit. As I always tell you, there is no male spirit. There is no female spirit. It's because you are in a body that has a physical characteristic of male or female. Your spirit is not masculine or feminine. Are you following that now? Tell anybody, say your spirit is not masculine. If it's a male or female. If it's a female, tell them that it's not feminine. You know? Your spirit is not female. It's not the wahala. Because female spirits will carry female characteristics. Hope you know there are female characteristics. Hope you know. Don't deceive yourself. People that say, I can do. No. There are things that are for females. They are just for females. There are female traits that you will never find in a man. And that's why they will ask you, when they start seeing those things, why are you behaving like a woman? Why are you behaving like a man? Because God made us distinctly. I always tell you, don't be fighting all those battles they are fighting. Don't fight it. And don't try to change from being a male to a female. There's one popular guy, is he Idris or Fatai, what's it called? That is now a female. Very stupid. Very, very stupid. He was still trying to sleep with his housemaid. But he's a female. What makes you a male makes you a male. The genes are there. The testosterone. Testosterone. Five people I don't want to speak. They are there. So they said sometimes the guy is feeling horny, but he's a female. He wants to sleep with his housemaid, but he's a female. So daft. Spending so much to maintain the foolishness. If you were made a male, the characteristics of being a male will always be with you. Same with the female. They're just different. So there is no female spirit. There is no male spirit. Just spirit. So while we use God in the male characteristic, he is no male. He is no female. What if God is female actually? Females will like that. But there is nothing like that. But that's not for this study. So when he's saying, let's big mind now, image, he's not referring to anything physical. He's referring to a duplication, or let me not say duplication, a replication of his spirit in man. That means who I am, I want them to be. That is why when Adam was formed, Adam was not in the image of God. Because he had not received the Spirit of God. Until a man receives the Spirit of God, he is not in the image of God. John 4 verse 24, Jesus tells us about God. He says, God is spirit, and those who must worship in spirit and in truth. 1 Timothy 1 verse 17, now to the immortal, the invisible, the only wise God, immortal, invisible, he is only touched through spiritual connections. So God's intention was to replicate himself in man. Like I told you in the earlier series, God's plan was that the spirit of man will become the spirit of God. That was God's original intention. So there is nothing like God being physical and then it looks like him. So when the man is created, God said, this is my image. Then the woman is created, then he said, this is my image. So I wonder, which one is God, out of male or female? But not so. The replication of God to us is as spirit, not as physical bodies, not as physical features. Nothing like your head looks like God's head. So your nose is like God's nose. They say when they are insulting you, when they are yabbing your nose, tell them that's how God looks. Both of you are foolish. You are not wise. When I mean wise in the word, you are not smart. So whenever they want to yab your nose, tell them that that's how I'm in God's image. So that's how God's nose looks. Also, so we look at all the different kind of noses here. Which one is God's one now? Because all of us have different kind of noses. Some noses are pointed, some are very broad like mine. Some, I don't think I have brother's nose, but I think, So if they yab your height, say that's how tall God is. Oh. So God has multiple heights. That's Bible illiteracy. Be wise. Just think when you just think small. Just small thinking. You won't say foolish things. So Adam was not in God's image. Why? Because in the next chapter, we see him rejecting God's life, God's plan for life, the spirit that will make man be like God, the spirit that will give man a portion in God, the spirit that will make it possible for God to look at man and say, yes, you are my son, you are a part of me. So until you believe the gospel, you cannot receive the spirit. And when you receive the spirit, you are now in the image of God, or you are now called the image of God. So it says, and if children, Romans 8:17, then heirs. So we have now received something. We have now received an inheritance. We now have a portion in God. What he is looking